this talk could go terribly. So yeah, I'm happy if people don't join.
Oh, come on. Okay, so I will leave the stage for now, and the stage is all yours. And wait a second. Do I need to introduce Jeff Patton? Maybe guys in the chat, can you say something, or is it just like
I can introduce myself?
No need. Sure. Who's this guy? Okay, so yeah, enjoy. And actually, you have the last, or at least not really defined topic of the day, but
and I don't even have a topic.
I don't really have a topic, and that's absolutely fine, right? So it's just... I
honestly came in today thinking I might completely change what I'm saying, and so I don't know.
Yeah, and I love it. And by the way, guys, if you haven't been at a Jeff Patton workshop, I can highly recommend joining one. By the way, are you currently having one remotely or coming up?
Yeah, the workshops I'm teaching are kind of anchored around a U.S. time zone, for better or worse. That means if you're in Europe, you're attending them in the evenings. I'm trying to get some things that are anchored a little bit more so that they're daytimes in Europe, and early morning for me. But yeah, I have one at the end of February, but that's sold out. So there's one at the end of March, and I can drop a link in someplace. But yeah, it's listed on Eventbrite, and I've got to do a little bit better at getting them listed sooner.
Okay. Yeah, I will also look for them. And yeah, so what I wanted to say is basically I went to a workshop with Jeff, and the great thing about you is that in between, you're just like, okay, should I go more in this direction or go more into this direction? And people just say like, yeah, we need to find out more about this, or we need to learn more about this. And then you just adapt, and you just have all these experiences, and then you just drop a line here, drop a line there, which is something I went to a lot of workshops, and this was really different from any other workshop, that you adapt to the audience, and whatever fits right now, you just switch gears, and then you go in this direction, which is, again, this kind of like also entrepreneurial mindset. So, okay, this thing works. Let's go.
My presentation approach caters well to improvisation. All right.
Okay,
well, maybe we
your turn.
Start it. I always have anybody who's seen me talk knows I have way too much to say. And there goes Thomas. Okay, I'm going to introduce myself for the people here and what I'm going to talk about. Hoping everybody can see me, because as soon as I put this slide up, I can't see you or even see the chat. We are at a product and UX conference, or UX and product conference. That's the way that the title is worded, as if we could separate those things. For me, it feels like a right brain and left brain conference, when we all know that it takes a whole brain to get anything done. Thomas had asked me, can you give some advice or how these two communities can work together? And I don't have any advice on how you can work better together, other than to tell you, you better work together or we're all screwed. Now, in way of self-introduction, I'm Jeff Patton. I am old. I've been involved with building software my entire adult life, which is 30 years or so now. For people listening in here, you might know me because I wrote a book called Story Mapping, which, if you're a UX person, know is my sneaky way of getting journey mapping into agile processes. I'm glad I wrote that book. It's paying for my kids' college education. Now, the reason I'm famous is because I was there first. In 2000, I was recruited as a product manager for a startup. The company I was recruited into was using this edgy new process called extreme programming. In 2001, while I was there, the term agile was coined, and I learned that I was using an agile processes like XP and Scrum are agile processes. So look, this makes me one of the first agile product managers. And one of the communities I most identify with is the design community. I started advocating for good design work very early on, back before we called it UX, when we were stumbling over terms like usability and human-computer interaction. And in the Agile community, I got a reputation for being the Agile UX person. But I like to think of myself as a product person, because that's kind of what I've always been. That's always what I've been focused on. These days, my career is spent helping companies adopt a better, more product-centric process. And that's a puzzle for me. Every company makes a product. Why would they need to be taught that? But the biggest problem I see is that it isn't that how product people should work or how UX people should work or how they should work together. There's a lot of solved problems here. But what I hear most of the time, well, actually, let me go back. I'm going to tell you the elephant in the room right now is I'm confident that throughout the day today, you have heard a lot of good advice. There's a lot of good practices you could and should do, but all of you and most of you aren't going to be able to go back to your company and do those things, do most of those things, maybe not any of those things. And you're all not alone. You're not alone. I spend most of my time teaching people a good product development process. And at the end of every day, people ask the question, how do I get my company to work this way? Because most companies don't. Even good companies will backslide and forget how to be a product-centric company. That's what I want to talk about, is why I think this is happening. I'm going to try and anchor this around 4 points so I don't get lost. I want to talk about what we focus on when we're actually building products, and then what we focus on instead, or how we lose focus on that stuff. And what happens when we lose focus? What happens when we forget what our product actually is? And then my best guess about why this happens. All right, let's start here. I need to ask a question, and I need to draw a model that if anybody's ever seen me talk, you've seen me draw way too much, but I need to anchor some points around this. I'm going to ask you, when I say great product, what comes to mind? And I'm hoping, let's see if I can still see this. Yeah, perfect. Somebody's already on it. Creates value for the user. What makes a product great? If I say that, what comes to mind? And let me grab what you said. It creates value for the user. What else? It solves a problem. It makes someone's lives better. Yeah, it solves a problem. It makes our lives better. And I'm not gonna be able to catch up. Is pleasurable. There's a wow factor. It sparks joy. Is that a Marie Kondo thing? What were the other things? It's easy to learn, delightful. Nobody has said yet that it makes money or we sell a lot of it. Should add accessible. But yeah, and helpful. Oh, look, I'm going to add the it makes money. It helps make our company more successful. Good. Somebody finally said it. But okay, stop there. You get it. Now, what I need to point out here is that no one, and I'm scanning the chat here, no one said finished on time or delivered under budget or any of that crap, because it's not, nobody says I love this product because it was finished on time. Or it met its intended scope. But let me explain how product development process works. It starts with, all these things start with ideas. If you are a startup, they could be an idea for a product. If you've got an existing product, those ideas are for features or enhancements, stuff we can add to the product. Those are the things that we start referring to as our requirements. And I hate that word. We say it way too much. And we want to turn those product features or enhancements into a product, something we can ship. And our company spends a lot of time worrying about the time or how long that's going to take. We've all got deadlines to focus on here. We worry about the cost. If we're talking about software, cost isn't measured in raw materials. It's measured mostly in the number of people it's going to take over time. And, we call all this stuff scope. And everybody knows this is the bad news triangle. We live in this, we swim in it, and there's no good news here. You know how this works. The rule of thumb is that we can only get two, meaning you fix time and scope, and then the bad news is it's going to take a lot more people. Or we fix time and cost, and the bad news is you're going to get a lot less scope. Or we fix all three, and the bad news is there's actually four. The fourth one is quality. And fix time, cost, and scope, and quality squeezes out like toothpaste in a toothpaste tube. We spend a lot of time focused here, but that's not what matters. What really matters is what happens when things come out. What really matters is what our customers and users, well, it's what they do, or what they say, and how they feel. This is nasty because our success, what we hope is that they say things like it's creating value for me, it's solving a problem, that it sparks joy. We ship something and we hope that people, they see it, try it. We hope that they use it. We hope that they keep using it. It's still early for me. My handwriting will get better in an hour or two. We hope that they keep using it, and we hope that they say good things. Now, if we're building a product for internal use, one where they have to use it, so we don't have to worry about whether they use it and keep using it. We worry about whether they're efficient, they do things faster, or they're more effective. They make fewer mistakes, and even if they have to use it, we can't make them say good things. These are the things that matter. And if we deliver a product and a few customers really love it, that's interesting. But what we need is a lot of people to really love it so that we can feel it inside our organization. If this is your org and there are lots of stakeholders inside your organization has a different responsibility, and these stakeholders need to help it with that responsibility. It needs to sustain itself. And like people pointed out, it sustains itself with cash. If lots of people use our product and lots of people pay for it, that's when we start seeing things like return on investment. If lots of people say good things, that helps our brand awareness and brand sentiment. Our net promoter score is going to go up. If lots of people tell each other and more people buy our product, that's going to help our market share. Now, I draw this all the time because, when we talk about what makes a product good, most of the things come out of the center here. Now, and some of the things come out of the right edge here. I draw this all the time because one of the first vocabulary things I need to straighten up in organizations is that this is output. That's what we build and make. But what matters is what happens when things come out. That is called outcome because of that. And a lot of people refer to everything over here as outcome, but I am going to draw a distinction between what your users do say and feel, what your customers and users do say and feel, and the business impact you get as a consequence of what they do. Look, and one other thing to add to this, the model doesn't actually start with ideas. The model actually starts with your customers and users, and it starts by understanding their problems or their unmet needs. And ideally, that's where those ideas come from, although they might come from those stakeholders who saw that a competitor had the idea. But look, they come from a lot of different places. How the scope of project management is here. But the scope of product management is end to end. At the end of a project, what you are left with is a product. And, what happens after, that's what matters. And managing a product means, okay, there's more problems, and I continuously improve this thing, especially with a contemporary software product. Now, let me see if I made all the points that I really wanted to make sure that I did. The dead obvious thing here is that, look, we've got to focus on delivering high quality products, and we need to do that predictably. That's necessary. That's table stakes. But what matters in a product development process is that outcome and impact stuff. That's what makes a difference. Now, I want to talk about a completely different kind of product. Maybe not completely different. I want to talk about a product where that on-time delivery matters a lot. This is going to seem like a non sequitur, but I promise you it's relevant. This is my backyard. I'm in the US. I live in a place called Park City, Utah, Utah's in the western part of the United States. I'm high up in the mountains. The closest ski resort to me is 10 minutes from here. People may know of Park City because it's where the Sundance Film Festival is held every year, except this year for obvious reasons. I've owned this house for 10 years, and my backyard is big, and it's been a mess. The soil is mostly rocks. Nothing grows there. My lawn is dead by June. I used to have this big wooden deck that always needed to be, every year needs repainting and fixing. And this year we decided we're going to dump some money into it, and they've already dug the yard up, and they started laying, putting some more sprinkler pipe, things like that in there. We hauled in a whole bunch of stone, and we built this really nice stone patio because stone is easier to maintain than wood. And our goal is to get all this stuff done by winter, but we didn't. Now, hopefully we'll finish this in spring next year. Now, what I want to talk about is this guy. This guy's name is Troy. Troy is my landscaper. He owns the company that I hired, and he's at my house a fair bit. And let's talk about this for a minute. I promise you this is relevant. Look, when I say great landscaper, what comes to mind? And I'm looking for the same laundry list of stuff here. If you had to hire a landscaper, he's the best. He's the best. There's something in there about his reputation. People know about that. Look, he's diligent. He knows what he does. He's efficient. Sorry, I really shouldn't do this. He's experienced. I get an enjoyable result for the price. For the price. There's something in here about value that I get. What else? He can improvise. It's the stuff he builds is sustainable. He can improvise because he's going to have to. Things change. The stuff he builds is sustainable. Builds a sustainable product or landscaping. At least he knows how to. There's something in there where he's the best. There's something in there about his expertise. He's got to know what he's doing. He's trustworthy, understands me. I'm shopping for, the one thing that I started this whole conversation with. I hope he can get this job done on time or somewhat reliably. I might have missed it. Did anybody say that? Oh, predictable, Thomas said. Yeah. He's predictable. He actually finishes. Now, we started this job before COVID, so I can forgive him for not knowing his team was going to be gone for weeks at a time because someone had been exposed and had to change the way work was done. So it didn't finish. Let me explain quickly how the landscaping business works. I'm going to go fast, and you probably already get this. The whole process starts with me. I am the customer. And look, I have a need, but I can't do it myself. The best I can do is change a sprinkler head. I don't have the equipment, the skills, any of the stuff I need to do, any of the stuff going on in my backyard. So I need to find somebody. In this situation, I found Troy. He is a landscaper. And I start by, explain what I want. And I thought I saw some things in there about being able to listen well and understand, because he does need to listen. He does need to try and understand. I communicate my vision, and he needs to interpret my vision. And he needs to do some design work. And part of that design work is to figure out exactly what we're going to build, exactly how we're going to do it, and how much it's going to cost. And that's when he gives me back an estimate. Now, if you've done this kind of process before, you know what happens next. This is where I throw WTF exception because the estimate, even when we talked about budget ahead of time, the estimate is always higher than I predicted it would be. He's trying to be true to my vision. He's trying to make something that I'm going to love or be awesome because I've told him what I love and what I think would be awesome. But I can't afford that. So we go into this back and forth mode that I'm going to call negotiation. And during this time, I'm thinking to myself, I need to save money. I want to get as much as I can. I want to get as much as possible, but within a budget. I'm thinking that to myself. Now, this is not what Troy is thinking. Troy is thinking to himself, look, I need to make money as much as I can while still keeping my customer happy. Because I want him to recommend me to other people and say good things about me so that I can get more work, so that I can be known as the best. It's going to help my reputation. So we go back and forth. We eventually agree, and I give Troy some money to start, and we agree on that scope. And well, then he has to get busy and do the work, or he has to build the stuff. And while he is building, he focuses on what we agreed to, that scope stuff. He focuses on the time frames, not just because I want my yard done, but because I should have drawn these people. Troy has a team of people, lots of people, and they're working other jobs, and he's got scheduling issues with making sure that people are where they need to be. And we have to focus on the cost. And Troy's costs are not just people. It's stone and gravel and topsoil and lots of other stuff, and sprinkler supplies. And yeah, the whole time he's doing this, he's focusing on quality. Now, look, he does all this stuff, and he didn't finish yet, but hopefully he gives back a delivery. All right, that took a while. Look, this process should look hauntingly familiar. I'm going to label the top line on this process requirements. I'm going to tell you the reason this process looks so familiar is because I can almost guarantee that it is your process. This is the one that your company uses. In fact, let me convince you here. I'm going to label the left side of this model the business, and the right side of this model, IT, or specifically IT as a service. The business brings their requirements in. IT's job is to listen, learn, and understand this stuff, make some design choices, give back an estimate. Business is never happy with that estimate. There's always some push back and forth. Business is trying to get as much as they can. Well, things get a little weird here because IT doesn't actually make money. Everybody gets their paychecks, but they definitely have to keep their customer happy. We do the negotiation. We agree on time, cost, and scope. We finalize a project or a project plan, and we do this work. We build this stuff. Now, let's see if I can make some points. Look, this is your process, but this process actually works pretty great for Troy. But if you're using this kind of process, it probably doesn't feel that great for you. Now, look, you might think because you're using an agile process that you're immune to this. But no, agile is exactly this. I can label the left side of this the product owner. The product owner builds up a backlog by talking with the business, and the backlog is filled with stuff we need to build. The product owner has a team. We start every sprint by talking about the backlog items or requirements. We try and figure out how much we can do. The team estimates, and we start with a fixed time box, usually 2 weeks, a fixed cost, usually the number of team members we've got, and we make those team members fix the scope on themselves. We eventually agree, and there's always some negotiation in here. And at the beginning of the sprint, we place that order. We get to work. We might use a burn down chart to see how we're getting through that scope. And at the end of the sprint, we deliver the stuff and we stop and evaluate the quality. There definitely isn't enough time to evaluate outcomes because we haven't shipped yet. Nothing comes out. And look, outcomes take a while to measure. It sometimes takes weeks or months before users actually start using your product and we can actually start to measure what's happening. So look, this is the process I can pretty much guarantee you're using. Now let's talk, I want to talk about why this works for Troy, but why it's kind of uncomfortable for us. Let's first talk about that outcome thing, because Troy isn't actually responsible for it. He is not responsible for the success of my backyard. Let me see if I can explain what I mean here. This is in my backyard. This is a gas fire pit. It has gas plumbed into it. I can turn on the gas, and there's a kind of a permanent log in there where I can throw wood onto it. And no matter how cold it is in the winter, I can turn this on, throw some wood on it. We can go outside and sit around the fire and be toasty warm and drink hot drinks and roast marshmallows. And I think it's going to be awesome. I think Troy did a great job on it. He cut that ring out of one solid piece of stone. He found the metal part that goes under it. He plumbed it, and I can't see where the plumbing goes in. It's all happening underneath. It's the craftsmanship is great. I've got other things in my backyard, like this garden area. The gates aren't in yet, and there's a bunch of Troy's equipment still there, and it's all snowed on. But I have aspirations that I will start gardening more, specifically growing vegetables, things like that. But look, here's the thing. If I actually don't use this thing, if I see it and I try it and we do this and we think, it's just way too cold and we're just not that into roasting marshmallows outside, and I seldom use it, and I tell people, hey, don't waste your money buying investing in a fire pit like this. If I don't use it, it's not Troy's problem. I'm not unhappy with him, because this was part of my vision. I got what I asked for. It's just not what I need. But that's my problem. I think I would still recommend Troy. He's still doing a good job. So, same thing with this. I suck at gardening. The likelihood of me actually being able to garden anything is actually pretty low. Might have not been a good idea, but it isn't Troy's job to tell me, Jeff, you suck as a gardener. I don't think you should do this. Now, again, Troy isn't responsible for whether I use or continue to use the product. He got it. He got his money. Now, let me point out why this works well for Troy. Look, if he's a service provider and he's got too much work to do, he's got lots of options. And for Troy, this is if he's got too much work to do, this is awesome. It's not a problem at all, because he can hire people. The more people he hires, the more money he makes. He sells their time. So if I've got more people working here, I mark up every single person. The more people I have, the more money I make, the bigger boat I can buy. That's the way it works. If I got too much work, I can just raise my prices. That's going to reduce demand, and I'm going to work with the most valuable customers who have the most money. And then I can just say no, or not now, or next year. And that's going to help my reputation. It's going to actually increase demand. I'm drawing this process because I want you to question, what is the product here? It's not my backyard, because my backyard isn't a product that's going to get resold to anyone else. There's only one customer, and it's me and my family. Look, he's not going to leverage that investment. He's not going to resell my backyard to lots of other people. And look, it's not actually the product. What Troy's product is time and materials. The process we just described is actually Troy's product experience. So look, since Troy is selling a service, that's the way this goes. He gathers requirements, does design, does estimates. If he was to build a journey map of his customer's product experience, this is what it looks like. Except, left to right, it would look like that. That's it. But I can almost guarantee that it is not your product experience. And that's where this starts to get annoying and messy. Now, look, we sometimes forget. We fall into this mode. This happens a lot, and nasty things go wrong when we forget, when we mistake that process for our product experience, when we start treating the service we provide, building stuff, as a product. So look, let me ask you, what happens when you mistake your boss for a customer, or worse yet, your boss mistakes themselves for a customer? Let me give you one cautionary tale for this. This guy's name is Jeff Bezos. He is the richest man on earth, and everybody knows who he is. And what he's holding above his head is an Amazon Fire Phone. The Fire Phone was released in 2014. I could ask how many of you have a Fire Phone, but I know the answer is none of you. Maybe one of you could have bought one, but I highly doubt it. I don't think it even made it into a European market. The phone originally cost $200. They marked it all the way down to $1 if you bought it with a mobile phone plan. They'd give it to you for $1, and people hated it. Nobody liked it. It sucked so much that they had to discontinue it fairly quickly. They had to mark down $170 million in inventory, and I don't know how many millions they spent designing this thing. I'm reading from some reviewers here. Got some stuff that the reviewers knocked the device for its gimmicky features, especially this thing called dynamic perspective. You could twist the phone around. It looked like things would be 3D in there. That took a lot of time and money. Most found that worthless and distracting. Now, why would this happen? Amazon is such a product-centric company, such a customer-centric company. Look at this from an article in Fast Company magazine. We poured surreal amounts of money into it, yet we all thought it had no value for the customer, which was the biggest irony. Whenever anyone asked why we were doing things, the answer was because Jeff wants it. No one thought the feature justified the cost to the project. No one, absolutely no one. Look, Jeff mistook himself for the customer. His team mistook him for the customer, and everybody built things because Jeff wants it. And you would think Amazon knows better. I don't need to remind you this. Your business is not the customer, and do not mistake your process for the product. Now, 2 years after the release of that phone, I think Jeff learned a hard lesson. In Bezos' 2016 letter to shareholders, he said that good process serves you so you can serve your customers. But if you're not watchful, the process can become the thing, meaning I'm focused on doing this process well, that's my product, and I can really easily lose focus on the product. I think Jeff will shrink back from being the customer in the future. Let me state the obvious here. Your product will not succeed because your process does. If you deliver predictably and on time, your product might still fail. Jeff's did. And maybe some of us have worked for this company. Your process can be an absolute train wreck. I've worked for companies where the process is an absolute train wreck, but oddly, the products are wildly successful. So those things just do not correlate with each other. So look, why do we keep making this mistake? Why do we keep falling back on trying to improve our processes? I'm confident you see this pattern. In fact, I'll explain this customer service provider pattern to people and explain the downside of it. And I will ask people in successful product companies, how big of a problem is this where you work? And I'll ask them on a scale of 1 to 5. And I get lots of 4s and 5s. And even in successful product companies, their bosses mistake themselves for customers. Employees mistake their bosses or stakeholders for customers. And we start focusing on whether they're happy or not. If you're a product manager, you might consider yourself the customer and your team the vendor. If you're a UX person, you might consider the product manager your customer and the team your vendor. And this is a problem. Now, my therapist has convinced me that it's my childhood that made me the way I am, that things that went right or wrong in my childhood, that's what formed who I am. And maybe she's right. So look, this is sort of the way I am, and I think it's the way you are. So look, I'm going to start by blaming my mother, and you should too. This is not actually my mother, but my mother taught me to be reliable, to keep my commitments, to be honest, to be a good communicator, to be a good person, to work hard. And I still have those habits, and they mostly came from my mom. And then later on, look, I blame my school, and that's not actually my school, but school taught me to deliver on time. Look, I was given assignments. Those assignments had requirements. I had to deliver them on time. And in fact, if I didn't deliver them on time, I was marked down for it. I received a worse grade. And the grade I received was a function of the quality of the work that I did. And if my work didn't meet the requirements, that was a problem. I was always graded based upon the output. Now, look, the truth is I did not do very well in school, and I actually didn't even finish college, finish university. But I've had a reasonably successful career, and no one is going to go back and revise my grades because the outcome of my education was good. I wish they would go back and up my GPA and give me a master's degree, but they're not. The outcome doesn't matter. I was judged on the output. You're, as a designer or a researcher, you might evaluate your quality based upon the subjective quality of your design or the high quality of your research. And if things go wrong with your product, you might point fingers at or blame engineers or blame your business. It feels good to celebrate the success of the output. And it takes an uncomfortably long time to actually wait to see what happens when things come out or measure those outcomes. I'm about done here, but today I believe that you will judge me based upon the quality of my output, and I don't blame you because that's what we're all used to. You'll judge me by whether you were entertained or informed or enlightened. You'll maybe say good things about this presentation, which didn't provide you with any practical advice, so you probably won't. That's the way it works. But what you really should judge me is based upon what you do differently, what you think differently, what you say differently, and how you feel, because those are the actual outcomes. But can you see how that's not a habit? We are going to judge based upon what we evaluated right now, right this second. And so do your stakeholders, so does your team. One last point to make here, and this is the really rough one because it goes against everything my mother has told me, is that product thinking is actually evil. Maybe not completely evil. Now, I keep hearing some nonsense like we are customer focused and we care about our users. I listened to the presentation first thing this morning and I heard Alan Smith from Strategizer say that our job is to create value for our customers. We do research, we work hard to empathize them, we assure our customers that we've got their needs in mind, and then we go back to the office and we make decisions about which customers we actually like best. We make decisions about which customers' problems we're going to choose to solve and which customers and problems we're going to choose to ignore. And if your company's like any company I've ever worked for, we are not choosing customers and problems based upon the customers with the biggest need or the biggest problems. We are choosing customers that have money because it's money that sustains our organization, and we are selling a product here. Look, sometimes we even give customers stuff they want and don't need, stuff that if they use will hurt them. We create addictive games. We cause them to do things or buy things that are not in their best interest because it makes us money, and we wrestle with the moral dilemma of that. If we do it too much, they'll eventually make regulations we have to comply with. And look, today I'm going to wrap up here. I'll admit that I'm evil. I'm going to decide that I don't care what you think about this presentation because remember, that's not the point. What I really care about is if you learn something that changes what you do or what you say or how you feel, because that's actually the outcome. Now, that's going to make me sound like a nice guy, but I'm not. I really don't care. I don't care that much about you. I mean, I do, but why I really care is because I'm selfish. Because if you say good things and this helps your company, you actually get value out of this, then your organization is more likely to hire me. And then I will get money so that I can pay for my kids' overpriced education, where they will go to school and learn to pay too much attention to output. That's how this cycle continues on. So I don't know what to do about this. I can explain how a great development process works. I've got a great model I love, and I would love to draw it for you. I can give you a list of things that you should do routinely to help keep your focus on outcomes. And there's some good ones of those, but people don't do them. Look, I don't have any great secrets to unlearn how you were raised or what your values are. I don't have any good secrets to help you focus less on the quality of your output and more on the outcomes of your actions. I don't know how to tell you to make your organization's leaders focus less on the quality of your output. I don't know how to change the culture inside your company so that matters less. It's just not the way we're wired. This is frustrating for me. This is the biggest problem I stumble into with every single company I try to help. If you've got any ideas on how to fix this, I'd love to hear them. But if my therapist is right, the only thing that will fix this is years of therapy. So let me give you my key points here, and let's wrap up now. Look, product thinking focuses on outcome and impact. You know that. Your process likely focuses on high quality or efficient and efficient production of output. We often mistake that process for our product, and we begin to act like service providers. This seems to happen everywhere, and I notice that. And our leadership and governance promotes that. We get congratulated based upon finishing on time and doing good work. And look, focusing on reliably doing good work is wired into us. You need to understand that. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with others. There's a lot of things you're going to need to unlearn to make this stuff work. And there's no simple process way out of this. All right. That's all I've got. Let's see how many audience members I have left after all this.
There's still enough people here. So
good. And this, I feel terrible. I've given nobody any practical advice they could go back and use.
I think that was absolutely. I mean, what do you mean with practical? I mean, that was not the goal, right? And advice is bad. Jonas, what do you think? Okay. Okay. So yeah, I would like to have people on the stage. Who wants to be on stage with us? Please join and ask your questions. Meanwhile, I'm waiting for people to join the stage. I wanted to talk about this outcomes and this outcome-driven design or product management, so to say, is that what I have seen multiple times is that the funny thing is that, and I think even Marty Kagan says this in his book, that business stakeholders usually are obsessed by KPIs and stuff.
Yeah.
But then when you look closer, what you're actually measuring and what you're actually looking at isn't any action-oriented KPI at all, right? So it's just like, oh, we need to look at revenue growth, revenue here, revenue there, right? But okay, but no one cares about acquisition. No one cares about retention. In the end, it's just like revenue going up, revenue going down. What is this maybe a part of the problem that?
I can see.
I mean, they're looking at outcomes.
It's clear to me why this happens, and this is why I use a distinction between outcome and impact. That your organization needs business impact to sustain its company. It needs revenue. It needs ROI. It needs more customers that pay routinely. That's what matters to your business. But your customers do not care about that. Your customers don't care about your revenue or your brand. There's a weird value exchange going on here where your company trades money for software, and then we turn that software we created back into money. And it's your business stakeholders' job to measure how much money they got. It becomes your job to solve customers' problems. And business are going to explain the KPIs that solve their problems. And no one quite gets, they sort of forget that. They sort of forget that the way we get money is by solving customers' problems. That's how that value exchange works. Don't know how to fix it other than I keep explaining this model over and over again. And I can say, this is why your company focuses on this, and help them understand how they actually are getting money. That's what we've got to do.
I have a question on this, that when we are talking about, let's say, the process-oriented and the result-oriented organizations, and then the evil business coming in to make the money, where does the ethical product management or the ethical UX design come in, where something about the customers' values are also taken into account, or the organization goes into more of an realization mode and not being really evil?
Yeah. So this hurts our heart not to be ethical, but for better or worse, your companies don't make more money because you're ethical. Your companies might make more money. Your companies will actually lose money if they get a reputation for being unethical, like Facebook got a reputation for being unethical, and now they've got to say we're ethical and work hard against that. So the reason your company is ethical is because it helps brand, it helps reputation. That's the evil way of looking at it. We want to be ethical. We want to build products that don't cause people to hurt themselves or hurt others. But look, if there's money in it, it's super hard for companies to resist, because companies breathe money. You breathe oxygen, but companies don't. What do we do about that? Look, I try and draw attention to the fact that if you do not pay attention to these ethics, these ethical dilemmas, those ethical dilemmas eventually turn into laws and regulations and rules. And now, because we don't pay attention to people's data, we've got GDPR compliance rules that we have to do. And if you ignore these long enough, somebody, that's the government.
You say that as, hi, I'm come from Europe.
Yeah, yes.
You say that as if it was a bad thing that the government was regulating. And
no,
I think there's something that you will find in California. There's more socialistic policies in place in government, in local practice, in local governance in California than you find in Europe when it comes to socialism, in a sense, which I find ironic.
Yeah.
But the thing with Facebook, and also because of the insurrection that we're dealing with post Trump's era, there's been a much more larger push from experts from Stanford as well that have to do with governance of the third party neutral governance of big platforms like that, and rules and ethics coming to products that use user data without transparency, without portability, for example. Like they are by designed so that you cannot quit them.
Yeah.
Adobe is one of them.
Yeah.
Their policy on subscription is insane.
Yeah.
So I hear your warnings, but
it's unfortunate that's the way it is, and it's super unfortunate that companies have to be regulated or governments have to come down on them before they actually start to care. It's tough. It's funny. The bigger a company gets, the minute the minute they have to start publishing financials and they've got shareholders and stock values, things start getting weird. It's hard to be good. Just be aware of that tension, and I'll tell people to watch out for those kinds of risks. But sometimes they're hard to sell up into companies. I'm sure people at Facebook were concerned about the ethical dilemmas of this, and I'm sure that they expressed them before any of this stuff happened. But it took bad press to make them actually act. And
I think also being the UX and the product owners here, being in the front line of this whole issue, let's say, we can be the ones who can become more aware and spread the awareness, because the business will always have the motive to earn more money, be it ethical or not. And I think that's where we come in, where we can be more aware and spread the awareness amongst our fellow colleagues.
Yeah.
But is it really the companies themselves that are allowed to govern that themselves? Or should it be a societal thing that should be regulated because it has to do with our furtherment of our democracies online, our rights online, our digital rights? Isn't that the development of democracy and society at large?
Look, let me give you a suggestion. I want to hear you guys talk. When I talk about that service provider anti-pattern, one of the examples of service provider I'll give that actually does focus on outcomes are doctors. I'll draw a continuum, and on one side of the continuum I put waiters, and on the other side of the continuum I put the word doctors. We show up at a restaurant, we ask for what we want, they give us whatever they want. You show up at a doctor's office, the first thing you do is check your KPIs, your health, your weight, your blood pressure, your heart rate, things like that. You can't give them a list of your requirements or tell them what you want, tell them what operations to schedule or what prescriptions to write. You do that, they will say, that's nice, tell me where it hurts, because they swore a Hippocratic oath to do no harm. When you say medical outcome to a medical practitioner, they know what that means. It doesn't mean the doctor who wrote the most prescriptions or made the most money. Good medical outcomes are healthier patients. Maybe product people need a Hippocratic oath. Maybe they need to do no harm. Doctors deal with this dilemma all the time because the hospitals they work for, at least in the US, want them to make more money or bill more. Anyway, rant about everything, but yeah, this is a problem.
I experienced that because actually I was working for a public relation agency, which was working for Facebook actually. So
oh no, you might have some
this was really
the trauma.
Yeah, it's really not funny at all. And it's all about this, because before you said about the ethical part, and to become ethical after government or whatever, or whoever says, okay, you have to, or your reputation is really bad. But even in those cases, those bigger companies really start to figure out how to just pretend to be ethical. So how can we find a way to let others believe that we do that, but actually we will still do our business behind that until the next big thing is coming up in the news. So it's always these, they do not want not to be evil. So many knots, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think this is really something where, I don't know. I'm really getting frustrated about these kind of things, because I think I want to shake those people and ask them, you have, like Thomas there, you have kids at home, and try thinking about these kind of things in the future we are going to, if we have a society, like Alexandra said, we have a society we want to live in. And this is such a higher value we have to start figuring out, not only in our product world, but I think it's really starting there. And how to reach this kind of like human mind sense somehow. So I think I have the feeling sometimes for us, it's like normal minds, and it's not in other words and different perspectives. So how do you said you're asking your therapist about this and having therapy for a long time?
I don't know how to unravel this, and maybe we don't want to unravel this. Maybe I don't want to forget any of the lessons my mother taught me. I do want to focus on these things, but I know it does not make business sense to focus on some of those things sometimes, and it's a dilemma. I don't have any good answers for it. And now I can see why Elon Musk wants to move to Mars. They start over there, maybe.
But at least calming for me that you have the same experiences and have the same thoughts, and you also feel this dilemma. So this is really inspiring in some ways.
They will do the same stupid things on Mars than they did here already.
Yeah, I mean, despite it being complex, it's actually, I was trying to translate this in Norwegian. There's a complexity to the problem, right?
Yeah.
It's complex, but it's not unsolvable, because I was in the media space for a very long time, working for newspapers. They have editorial responsibility. The big case now in Australia where I think it's Google trying to twist their arm and say, we're not going to take responsibility for the content we push, because that's too great of a cost for us. So they're forcing the people to accept that they are a big power and a dictatorship that dictates that content should not be regulated in Australia. Yeah. So if we want to take back our editorial responsibility and not get in the mess that, I mean, free speech is good, but we also need moderation. We also need responsibility of the information we put out there.
Yeah.
And that is the main, I think, mistake of the Fox News channel and the networks that we don't agree with in Europe, most of us, I hope, that they don't take responsibility for the lies that they put out, or Facebook, or the other people.
Yeah.
but it is possible. They just make it seem impossible.
I think the big problem here is it doesn't make business sense to pay attention to it. That's the unfortunate thing about it.
Is it? I've been hearing otherwise these days.
Yeah.
I think people are fed up with that they will switch browsers, but will a lot of people do it? No, it's like the paywall.
There are a lot of people that will do care enough, and over the last year I've been forced to go vegan because I can't eat meat around my 17-year-old daughter, and I've become a lot more ethical when it comes to this stuff, and I'm worried about the environment. But it took my 17-year-old. It took motivation from her. I think it's going to take motivation from people we respect and care about to get us there. It's sometimes too easy to do the wrong thing. But these are big world problems we're trying to talk about, and they kind of affect what we're doing. And they get in the way of product thinking, I guess. There's a clash between product thinking or good product thinking and these things that really matter.
But isn't that also about alternatives? So like if we say, like if Alexandra says like, okay, we would change browsers or whatever because they are more ethical. So if those big players just have competitors in one way, I think really people start thinking about this, like you're doing the vegan stuff now. It's more like, okay, now maybe, so vegan is really just about vegetables in the end and fruit, so nothing that is new, but due to those products in the shelves which make you believe that now vegan is possible. I've just recently seen an advertisement about vegan is very easy, and there were only products that were already treated. There was no veg, no fruit, nothing. Sausages, like vegan sausages and these kind of things. And this makes people think, oh, this is pretty new. Now I can do it. In these times I can do it. 20 years ago, I couldn't do this because it was not possible. But if those competitors really start to go into these kind of words as well, and I'm not sure who said this before, if this was this session or another one, sorry, about... now I lost my thread. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry.
Maybe we can change the topic from veganism back to product stuff. Sorry about that. Sorry if I just had it. It kind of derailed for me. And as far as I'm concerned, nobody of you is a moral instance for me. I don't care if you eat meat or not.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Let's maybe have the people who didn't have a chance to speak up here say something. So Bennett, Alexander, Matthias.
I have just one point because I think that Jeff is wrong.
Oh, good.
I think
I'm wrong too most of the time. So great, please.
No, but you missed one. I think you missed one point. I think processes were never meant to deliver better products or to deliver better outcomes.
Yeah.
I think the processes. Are you right about that? We treat the processes as the product, and that we're totally shit-faced about that. But the problem is that the processes were never invented to build better products, but to ease pain. Because if you have a shit process in the company, in your social life, in your whatever, if you don't have some you're humans, we need some sort of, for lack of a better word, I don't know, guardrails. My English is too bad to find another word that helps me here. We need some sort of solid ground that we're standing on. To come back to your backyard. And I think that was the point, because when all these processes, the Kanban thing for business in the late 90s and Scrum in the early 90s or something, when all these processes were invented, it was because people had pain working with these kind of things, and it never was about the product in the first place. So you're right about the point, but you're wrong about that. The processes were never intended to build better products, but just to make people more comfortable working.
There's I agree with you. So I might be phrasing things wrong. Yeah, I really think that's the purpose of a process. One of the things you're saying makes me, there's a term that I like that came from a book called Thinking in Bets, the term resulting, where if anybody's heard this, where you do something and the result is good, so therefore you believe what you did was right. Or if you do something and the result is bad, therefore what you did was wrong. And I try and help people understand that we need to decouple the outcome from the process we use to get it, because that's not because when people do something and they get a successful product, they think it's right. They can practice a train wreck of a process and deliver a product that's successful in the market, and they can think that process is right. Or they can use a really healthy process and the outcome can be bad, and they think that process is bad as a consequence. When it's what you said kind of made me think of this. We keep trying, because of this resulting thing, we keep trying to make the process the thing that results in the good product, and that's another annoying human nature thing. Businesses will not adopt Agile because it's not helping them get good products. Even Agile practitioners will say we should measure the success based upon the improved success of our company. And okay, the connection might be kind of weak here. Like you said, it gives people some safety. It gives people some structure so that they can work together, so they can actually do something.
That sounds like a perfect setup for Matthias to jump in.
Perfect. Yeah.
I don't know. Let's see. Like I tried to build on that. So we're building tools. So I always compare that to, like, if you're working with timber, you're building like a table or a bed. So what do you need? Like, do you go at it with your hands and just try to squeeze in like a screw? No, you pick a tool, and you have these tools, and then you have like your workflow, how you do it, and you try to optimize that over and over again to be faster on building that bed, to be able to sell more beds, and you're buying better tools that do the job. But if you're not able to build up a good workflow or adapt to a workflow that you know, or if you're not able to use that screwdriver, then what's the sense of this? So you have to find the right things, not overdo. Like, you don't need 20 screwdrivers. You don't need like the most fancy tool, probably. You just have to think, what do I really need? So looking at what you do and then implementing what you need. So this for the one thing. I wanted to say one thing to the ethical, because what was not mentioned is it was always around product, but that the customer plays a big role in this game is a different story. So if we as customers don't stop using tools that we think are evil, when will they stop? When you said it, like, they keep on making money, so this is what's driving them. And this is what I see a lot: people complaining, I care about my privacy, but then they're sending Gmail emails, they're on Facebook, they're on Instagram and whatever. So it's like, not matching what the people say and what they do. These kind of issues that I really see a lot. Yeah,
it's a tangled mess. I don't know if I have anything to add to that. I agree. Somebody brought up earlier in this conversation that having alternatives helps. That people are, they hate things being tough, and they'll settle for using Gmail. I use Gmail, and I don't think about. I try not to think about them having too much of my data. I will, if anything goes wrong, I'm going to think about it more, but I put it out of my mind. And because doing something else would be hard, I'd have to spend more time and to figure out what to do differently and change a bunch of things. And we humans suck at doing things that are hard.
That is a admirable sentiment. Seeing that we're already massively over time, why don't we been hanging out on stage here for a while with the last question and then wrap things up.
Oh wow, so I got the honor to ask the last question. We will see about how that will work out. So thank you for your talk, Jeff. I'm curious about your case about the Fire Phone. I was thinking a lot about sometimes how business owners or business people at the company and also sales department can, so to say, give their, they want to have a special feature or product, that they say that, hey, IT, or hey, product, let's build this product because we want that. We are the customer in the company, as you talked a lot about. I'm curious about the Fire Phone as a case. How would the Fire Phone be a successful product? How would that be turned around? Would it even exist? Or, yeah, what's your take on that?
Where to grab something there? Alexander, you're asking how could you turn that Fire Phone around?
Yeah, how would that turn it around?
It's funny. Anyone watching that could have argued that if we could have got early versions out to people, if we could have got feedback, we would have learned what features mattered and didn't matter, and we would have we didn't have to wait for reviewers to review the product poorly. We could have put it in front of people a long time. But Amazon could have sucked it up and iterated and improved that, but they didn't because it was a business decision not to. I can remember somebody used Google Glass as an example, and I forget who did. And look for it online. There's a Mind the Product talk from Tom Chi. Tom Chi ran Google X and developed Google Glass. And one of the things he said is that Google Glass wasn't actually a failure, in that it was a failure as a consumer product device. Nobody wants to be, you look dumb with that. People coin the term glass holes for people that are wearing that Google Glass. But as it turns out, for surgeons, it solves a really important problem. If you're a surgeon, you got to be cutting into a patient and looking at a monitor. And while you're cutting, you can't see the monitor. And while you're looking at the monitor, you can't see the patient. Or for people picking things at warehouses where they don't know what's where, overlying, having augmented reality really helps those. Tom explained that we found that there were viable markets for it, but it just wasn't Google's strategy to go into medical devices or warehouse automation. So they said, no, we abandoned it. I think Amazon decided it wasn't in their best interest to try and compete with Apple and everybody making Android phones these days. So again, it was, they didn't stick with it because it didn't make business sense. They certainly could have. They would have had to admit to a $100 million mistake, but they could leverage what they learned and moved on. I don't know what the best way. They could have moved forward, but again, whether you move forward or not ends up ultimately being a business decision.
Did they sell the experiment or the Google Glasses to other?
I don't know what happened to the technology. I don't know if Google gave it away, but Google did discontinue the Google Glass, and now other people have moved forward with those ideas, or those augmented reality kinds of ideas for other kinds of products. But it's just when I'm talking about product strategy, and back to what I was saying earlier, I'll tell people that the toughest decisions you will make are not what your product does or what features go into your product. The toughest decisions you make are what people you're going to focus on and what problems you're going to solve. That's the heart of strategy. And Google simply chose not to solve those kinds of problems because they weren't interesting to them. It wasn't part of their strategy. I don't know what ultimately they did to it, but other companies will step up and solve those problems, I think.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you all so much. We're not quite done yet, but thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everyone who participated today.